kick ourselves off. All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the year. We're in 2022 now, and we're continuing on with our SFMI bite-sized webinar series. And today we're introducing the topic of water management, which is a kind of a long-established criteria within the SFMI assessment. But as we'll go into it, we'll kind of hear about the challenges involved and why it's not been particularly well, why it hasn't scored highly within the SFMI assessments. So for those of you who are this is your first time joining, the SFMI is the Sustainable Facilities Management Index. And we are, our mission is to embed sustainability into the management and the operation of the FM sector. So that involves both in-house FM as well as the provision of FM services that are outsourced. We do this because we see the FM role as pivotal to helping businesses within that built environment space to become truly sustainable organizations. The FM has people on the ground, it has knowledge of buildings and how they operate, and is able to operate systems and really get things done. And when you look at the requirements of what makes a good environmental social strategy, the FM can touch on lots of different elements of these. So what we do is we go in and we assess FM providers into how they currently are managing sustainability, both within their direct operations, but also within the services that they deliver. And then we provide them with feedback and what they need to do to improve and how they can improve their performance scores. And we conduct an assessments on an annual basis. As part of the SFMI, we're conducting these monthly webinars, which are here to teach, provide free learning for the FM sector. So please do take notes, ask questions, and if you want to ask questions, use the question and answers tab within the Zoom, or you can use the comments tab as well. So we're here to talk about water management. As I mentioned, since the SFMI has been assessing businesses over the last, or since 2012, so this is our 10th year, water management as a criteria has been scoring consistently kind of low across the sector. And we want to raise awareness of it and kind of really build up the profile of water as an issue within FM. So we've invited along Chris Billingham from a company called Methven UK. And Chris will be talking to us about the issues that are here with us in the UK, but also kind of taking experiences from other countries as well. Methven bring experience from the likes of Australia, which, as we know, is kind of a very water stressed region. So Chris, I'm going to hand over to you, and if you can take us through and give us your learnings. And as I mentioned, we'll be taking questions throughout, and we'll have a little Q&A session at the end. So over to you, Chris.
Thanks very much, Chris. I'm just trying to open. Just go there. Right. Let me know when you can see those slides.
Yep, let's come up.
Good. Okay, afternoon everybody, and thanks Chris for that introduction. So I just wanted to share some of the issues, challenges around water management as we see them, and just to present some findings that we've had from a case study that we've run in Australia. So to cover off, the agenda is understanding the issue in terms of where we are now, and as Chris said, I guess where we want to get to around awareness and other points in there, and then to talk about the case studies that we've done. So for those of you who are residents of the UK, you'll, I'm sure, be aware of the perception that we have here, where there is a common belief that there is no shortage of water here, because essentially it rains all of the time, and we're surrounded by water because we're an island nation. And I think what I've tried to put together here is just some data more on the fact that largely speaking, rainfall in the UK has hasn't changed if you look over the long term, but you can see from the graph on the right there that we have had some years of where there's been low rainfall, but then followed in the following year by high levels of rainfall. The issue really is around water stressed areas and the growth of those. So information at the bottom of the screen, the two maps there from 2007 to 2021, you'll see the kind of red counties that are shown on the map in England, just in terms of the spread of water stressed areas across the UK, across England, sorry. A big part of this is down to the population growth as we see in the UK. The two graphs shown here from the ONS are just showing how the UK population has grown from the 1950s of over around 18 million people. What we saw in the 90s was a big growth of population, but particularly the early 2000s. That has now, the projection is that that's slowing down, but ultimately what this means is that with greater population density, it's meaning that there's essentially less water to go around. Couple that with the fact that as individuals, we're all using more water. So since the 1960s, the average use per person per day was about 85 litres of water. That's now gone up by 76% to about 150 litres of water. And looking at the table on the right, I think what surprised me when I looked into this was just how much water a washing machine uses domestically. Now, it's not a lot of the information that circulates is about domestic use, but from a business point of view, I've got some information here just with regard to the use in businesses. So 30% of water usage is non-household in the UK. And what's interesting is that less than half of businesses are actually tracking their water usage. The other thing that is just moving away from individuals' water usage is actually a large proportion of the water usage. It actually is consumed by leakage. So it's not actually from us consuming the water, but in businesses, 20% of firms have had a water issue on their site at some point, which has affected operations. So a survey that was done recently by YouGov across 1,000 firms highlighted some of these issues in terms of the impact to operations, because if you don't have functioning toilets and washrooms, unfortunately, you're not legally allowed to continue your operations. And the impact of that is a cost to the businesses, not only for not being able to operate, but the cost of the leakage of the water. And there's a couple of case studies here where literally it's hundreds of pounds a day across a couple of different sites there to demonstrate the financial impact of the business as well. The challenge is that people aren't measuring it in a way that they can actually quantify this. One of the other things that we've looked into as well, particularly from a built environment point of view, is the growth of interest in ESG targets and strategies that businesses are now looking into. And certainly we've had talks from the SFMI Bitesize before about this. And the data that we see on water usage and water consumption is poor. But the bigger thing is there's a lack of strong financial motivations in terms of getting businesses to buy into this. And we've looked into the use of BREEAM. Now, BREEAM or BREEAM is definitely something that I think is a really worthwhile accreditation and assessment that should be done for sustainability. But when you start to look at it in more detail in the UK, I suppose from my point of view, what's disappointing is the amount of BREEAM assessments that actually happen in offices that are for the in-use category. There's 3 different categories there, as I'm sure many of you are aware, but 90% of those tend to go into the in-construction piece. So there's a lot of focus on the embedded carbon that goes into buildings as opposed to the day-to-day running of it, and water makes up a small percentage. But the other view there is with it only taking up 11%, it can be enough if you've got a decent water strategy in your business or in your building for it to push it from one level of classification to another. So where do we want to get to? What's the point of all of this? Well, as Chris talked about, one of the challenges is prioritising water usage as a problem. Yes, we know that there's lower financial impact to businesses, but this isn't a problem that has an end to it at the moment with the factors that are affecting it. And that ultimately from using less water, we are going to create a benefit for not only our businesses, it does have a link into energy usage. There is a financial benefit to it, but it also does link to businesses' carbon footprint. Now, the biggest thing to change, as we'll know from day to day, is changing habits and behaviours. That can be one of the hardest things to change. But in order to make those changes, we need to have data to work off. So measuring consumption is really important. And then providing users with that data and various means or nudges to take the action will be something that we can show in our case study actually yield some results. But there's lots of options available now, and they're not being implemented at a quick enough rate. So the technology is there, but what we have found is that, and certainly from the case study, is that there's two steps to this. One of which is to move away, is to move to more to less water hungry fixtures and fittings in a business, but also there need to be items that, or products that aren't going to reduce a user's experience, because it tends to be if you give people less, their experience is less. So it's important that you maintain that. But there's data, and smart washrooms can be a big part of the answer to help generate that information to affect those behaviours. So I appreciate there's a lot of numbers on this page, but I'll try and break it down. I couldn't go into presentation mode in here, so it's all kind of, it's coming up all at once, I'm afraid. So what we've done in the, is we've looked at 3 different scenarios for washrooms in commercial businesses. And we've taken one of the joys that I've had through this process is looking into the behaviour of people in the workplace and how often they go to the toilet, and ultimately what they do when they're in the toilet. I'm not going to share those results. What I am going to do, though, is just talk about how we've come up with these calculations. So 3 different baselines, and this is based on a small office with 10 males and 10 females in it, with 3 different types of fixtures. What we've also done is, one of the things that's growing more and more in businesses is to provide some users with something called an end of trip facility, where the washroom has a shower in it. So these fixtures have been based on the size of flush, or the flow rate of the tap, or the flush of the toilet, as well as the duration by which people use these different fixtures, obviously when they go to the toilet or use the washroom. So the results in the cyan box are based on the 3 different scenarios. So the baseline being non-reductive fixtures, if you like. So this is where you've got a standard urinal flush, you've got a standard toilet flush, so it won't be a dual flush toilet, and a standard sort of industrial strength shower, if you like. And the low water usage fixtures are where you have a lower flow of flush items, dual flush toilets, lower running showers. And then a smart washroom is whereby, again, you've got reduced usage fixtures, but also data to help move people forwards in terms of their behavioural use. So the cyan box at the bottom is just looking at the annualised water usage, and this is based on the average usage per person of 4 times a day. So essentially we go to the toilet 4 times a day, and that we use the shower once a week. That's what this has been built around. And so using those 3 scenarios, what we've done is calculated the, in a standard, the baseline is that 20 people would use just over 200,000 litres of water a year. If you went to lower usage fixtures, you could reduce that by about 30,000 litres. And if you went to smart fixtures and optimised fixtures in terms of the user experience, you could significantly reduce that to just under 91,000 units of water per year. Now, I suppose the answer to the question in terms of why this isn't being prioritised links largely to the data around total annual carbon CO2 emissions, effectively, that would come as a result of this water usage. And this has been done by an independent company that we use for building our carbon calculations. So when you look at the actual amount of carbon that you've produced by using largely warm water, and this is just based off the use of heated water for hand washing and for showering, you're only seeing across all of that water usage a small amount of carbon emissions from water by that business. So this is the major problem for us in terms of why water is not a high priority. But if we put the carbon emissions to one side, you can certainly see there's a significant saving that can be made by going to smart fixtures. But these are calculations. So let's look at a real case study that was run in Australia in an office block over the course of 12 weeks. So the first 3 weeks was baseline in terms of, it was 2 floors in an office block, which had, I don't know how many users there were on each floor, but the total was roughly 200 users, I think, in terms of across the site, 100 on each floor. The maximum capacity of the building was 3,000. And obviously, during COVID, this wasn't at full capacity, but it was like-for-like data. So weeks 1 to 3 was whereby there were no smart fixtures. So the data shown here has actually got reduced use, so dual flush toilets, for example, in it, but this is just purely on the benefits of smart fixtures. And these are fixtures that measure usage, monitor the amount of usage when it's used in the day, and report that data on a daily basis via a dashboard. Weeks 4 to 12 was the test period where the smart fixtures were deployed, and as well as that, there were additional activities included, which I'll take you through. So just to show you some of the things that we also included, we had people counters, so that the data that the fixtures were generating was corroborated, so whereby people going in and out of the toilet would tell us, or into the washroom would tell us, so corroborate those that data, that usage. We also had something called eco valves. So these are devices that sit on the water feeds into the washroom that are monitoring if there is a leakage, be it small or large, and it will automatically shut off. We also spoke to users and tenants and facilities managers about their experiences of using it. And also we had QR codes on some of the fixtures where people could effectively do a 5-star rating or a 1-star rating based on the cleanliness, the performance of the washrooms. The bottom row of images you can see there are also some of the visual nudges. So on a weekly basis, these posters would be put up and they were branded to the company, the building that it was in terms of giving data to the users in terms of performance over the last week. So these are the data has been produced and visual nudges are put into place to encourage people to use the facilities in the right way. So in terms of the results, what we saw from the use of water saving fixtures, just from going to smart fixtures, we saw an 18% improvement in water usage. So what we found from the first 3 weeks was that men were using urinals frequently, but we needed to enforce that behaviour because it was amazing how many men would actually continue to use a toilet, which obviously consumes more water. What we also found for males and females is the lack of use of a half flush when they go to the toilet. And so by giving visual nudges and with this data to encourage people to use the half flush over a full flush, that allowed people to reduce their water usage. The other thing, sorry, let me just move that out of the way because it was animated. Oh, I can't, let's delete that then. So the Hygiene Index was again something that came up from using smart fixtures, and this was essentially a ratio of the amount of times that people wash their hands compared to using a toilet fixture. And that 1.6 index means that that people washing their hands more than once for every time that they were using one of the facilities. So it might be that they wash their hands before and then they wash their hands after. But what we also know is the length of time that people wash their hands for. And as we'll all know from the COVID lockdown, when the pandemic started, we were all encouraged to wash our hands for 20 seconds. What you can see here from that data is that people are washing their hands for 6.7 seconds, but with the encouragement of these signage, it went up by only 7%, but there was an improvement. So it's a way of being able to track your users, the occupants' hygiene throughout and their user experience. This gives an example of some of the data, and this is essentially fixture usage per day. So it's a heat map. I apologise that it's quite small on this page, but you can see obviously the darker the colour is, the greater the usage. So again, what this is telling us is how often each of those, I suppose, when you are getting the most amount of usage, and it's done by hour. So you can see at 8 o'clock in the morning, you start to see the numbers ramp up to around the lunchtime. And then it drops off again beyond 8 o'clock in the evening. And what this is about is it gives us data as well to help to predict maintenance. And that's something else. So I appreciate this is a side thing, but it's the joy of smart fixtures can give you is in terms of ongoing predictive maintenance and when things are needing to service, so you can manage it around and do it out of hours. So in terms of the total projected savings just from switching to smart fixtures, based on taking that data and projecting it over 12 months, we found that the total water savings just from the use of smart was going to save the 2 floors 238,000 litres of water. And that was based across 3 areas. So 16% of that was over the encouraged use of urinals. 36% of that was from the optimised flush and the shut off, sorry, when it was not in use. So some of the smart fixtures as well will also detect when people are present, a bit like if those of you who've got a Nest thermostat, it can detect your presence in the house. The fixtures, if they're not being used for an amount of time, won't necessarily automatically do a duty flush. They can be set to do it at fewer times in the day. The other, almost half of this was down to the number of times that there was a leak triggered, and this was projected as rolled forward in terms of if the devices weren't there and the leaks that have carried on. So there's a good chunk of this down to water leak prevention. The final slide, just to show you, I've gone through that. I appreciate a lot of data in a whistle-stop tool. But the other thing that we found from the usage data was also to do with bathroom layout. Now, I know as facilities managers necessarily the impact in terms of the day-to-day of a building is important, but in terms of for future design of washrooms, what we found from usage was also the layouts of the bathroom can be significant in terms of water usage. So here are 2 examples on the left of both male washrooms and about the encouragement of use of urinals. So what would happen is a user would come in through the entrance on the left. They would walk straight past the basins, which was the first thing that they saw. And as they turned the corner, if they saw that somebody was using the first urinal, the natural assumption was that the rest of that row would be filled. So they would naturally go through and use one of the cubicles. And that sort of a layout, because of the line of sight and where you could see what was operating, would drive behaviour. So it meant that men were using cubicles far, far more than they would be using urinals. You flip that on its head, and the right-hand design is the design of the washroom as it went forwards. And this was whereby the wash basins, then the urinals are in line of sight, so you can see those straight away. And the toilet cubicles were put towards the back of the washroom, which naturally encouraged higher usage of the urinals. And that flowed through in terms of impacting on water usage in that washroom. That's everything from me, Chris, just in terms of giving you that kind of overview. But I suppose to summarise, the key takeaways are, carbon is certainly, from the businesses that I've spoken to, buildings developers, carbon footprint is the number one thing that's driving behaviour around sustainability in the built environment at the moment. Water is sitting as a low priority, and a lot of that is down to lack of awareness and the impact that they realise that could happen to their businesses.
Thank you very much, Chris. I find that actually really interesting what you've been talking to there, because I mean, really, you've got the as you mentioned about the savings around the carbon impact, but actually then an approach to water management just when it comes to the bathroom design, without looking at kind of other areas. You're actually also looking at potential savings from the cost of maintenance, and how frequent an organisation is visiting those, and then being able to kind of act smartly based on the cleaning and the maintenance of the bathrooms. Kind of touching on the health and safety element as well, really, especially in the times of the pandemic. You're talking about the hand washing side of things. I guess it's extra information and data which can give you a bit of insight into user habits. And then, so at the beginning, you mentioned about did you mention about fines? Because I remember seeing a thing about schools in particular, and then
yes, so that was the cost of I didn't say anything about fines, but it was about the cost to those organisations from the leakages. So in terms of, I think we've got one of the cases was 9,800 litres of water was being wasted, was being lost a day, and that would equate to £700 on the water bill.
I see. Right. Okay. So then, I guess Yeah, because you know, I know there's a lot of FM companies out there who do actually have, you know, the likes of school contracts, for example,
Yeah.
and then those particular those kinds of facilities are having consistent use of the kind of the water of the water areas, aren't they? So I guess there is potential targeted improvement that can be made based on the type of clients an organisation has.
Yeah, I mean, putting that into context, I think with the two tables I showed, where we did the calculations around the water savings going from the baseline through to smart fixtures, just to give you an indication. So that was including using a shower a week, and I know some people may be thinking, well, we haven't got showers in our facilities. To give you an indication, the split of water usage to shower usage from toileting and from hand washing was about 60% of that numbers to 40% showering. But if you then equate that into a financial amount, and so this is based on 20 people, so 10 males, 10 females, we saw that as a 58% saving, and equating that amount of water by the same means is it would be over £5,000 a year saving on the water bill just from reducing that. So to give an indication, there is a real financial benefit to do this, where that money could be deployed elsewhere in the business.
Sure. Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions from the audience. So we've got one about asking, what would you say the most significant technology implemented to save on water is for businesses? I guess you've got different types of businesses, but organisations that you've worked for.
I'd say the one that kind of, it doesn't matter what application is happening, certainly water leakage detection is probably the one that has the biggest significance, because that can impact on not only your main site, but it could also be if you have satellite sites. We've known of businesses that have fitted water leakage detectors, if you like, on particularly in data management businesses now, where they might have a facility of servers, if you like, that is out in a forest somewhere, and they have to have facilities there for toileting facilities for the maintenance staff that go there. Those properties might not get visited daily, they might not get visited monthly, or maybe it is monthly, but if there was a significant leak there, certainly that's going to be something that has a big impact to businesses. It's that, I think from the fixtures point of view, it's definitely about twinning the user experience, because again, I've always been questioning of lower flush toilets, but I think in terms of the technology that you can deploy, there are technologies in toilet design that can make the water itself do more work for you. So it'll be a combination of those things.
Sure. So I guess then the best opportunity for kind of the likes of the FM is when it comes, because you've got a couple of different areas which you touched on, especially I like the behavioural change side of things. So actually when it comes around to those projects that FMs can be kind of managing, and it comes to that kind of redesign aspect, you can actually kind of throw all at one go in order to get maximum impact.
Yes.
And I like the way that you're essentially you're saying that men are pretty lazy when it comes to
well, now that's a sweeping sexist statement, and I couldn't possibly agree to that one. But I think what was surprising, I think, for us, and on another case study that we did, was the assumption was that men would be, if you like, less hygienic than women in terms of they would wash their hands less. And what we did find was that men did wash their hands for a shorter amount of time, but the difference was only about 5%. It wasn't that it was kind of women wash their hands for a lot longer. I think the laziness, yeah, you're quite right there in terms of you've got laziness versus desperation, shall we speak. I'm sure there's a scientific factor there in terms of that, but yeah, no, completely. I think women are presented with one option in terms of the type of facility they can use, whereas men have multiple choice, but they are lazy in their choice. You're right.
Sure. Brilliant. And then just as final kind of statement, what would you give as a piece of advice to an FM provider that is engaging with the clients on water management?
I think it's about trying to, without trying to put across a point of crisis to people in terms of this is terrible, the world's going to end. I think it's be realistic about the significant, present the facts about the benefits that can be made in the long term. I think because it's not just about benefits to the business financially. There are facets to this that it's unfortunately it's a sum of all its parts, and it is quite complicated. And But from the work we've done, you can build it up into a case in terms of, instead of just replacing that facility, because a lot of projects will be refurb, but genuinely think about the impact that you can not only have on your workforce, the financial saving to your business, but it will contribute to your carbon footprint as well, in terms of, or your handprint actually, in terms of reducing your footprint.
Yeah, and also in the likes of GRI reporting and such, which all of these measures can get rolled up into corporate sustainability reporting as well. So for those companies that do this reporting, it's a good way of engaging with them.
Yeah, and look, I think from the BREEAM point of view, I see the 11% as an opportunity, because again, you look at a lot of these buildings where they may not have focused on real water savings. I genuinely think that rainwater harvesting is an admirable thing, but I think the reality of it, managing that day to day, and the hygiene factor is difficult. Whereas these sorts of changes to fixtures, and by all means switch to a smart system, but in the office that I'm sitting in now, our office here up in Warrington, we don't have dual flush toilets. So the simple things like put a dual flush toilet in, make sure you've got your urinals available for men if you've got a large workforce of men, can make a significant impact on your water usage.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Chris, and the team at Methven UK. Quick couple of minutes from me then, just to wrap up. We're looking forward to next month, where we invite Skanska, who were joint winners of the SFMI this year. So we'll be joined by Jack and Fran from the Skanska team, and we'll be talking about how FMs can deliver health and well-being, greater health and well-being in its buildings. So looking forward to that. You'll be receiving communications from the team, and keep an eye out on social media, and please do share and encourage others to come as well. Also, to think about coming up and within the SFMI, we have released our Scope 3 emissions in FM documents. It was at the end of December. It's on our website. Please do check it out. The program was we worked with BAM FM in order to build up the initial approach, the initial insight into Scope 3 emissions within FM, and we're looking to receive further consultation from that document. So please do have a look, and if you haven't done so, please do complete our consultation online form, which I know people don't enjoy doing forms, but it really does help us, and it helps the industry as we can work on the second part of the program. Also, keep an eye out in early Feb for our Sustainable Procurement in FM reports, which is a very detailed insight into the procurement of FM services, or sustainable FM procurement from both the FM perspective and also the client side perspective. So that will be published in early February, so please do look out for that. And then I guess a personal plug from me, I'll be joining some other speakers within the FMJ on the 26th of January, talk about waste and biotechnology. And also we'll be presenting at the Workplace Future Conference on the 22nd of February as well. So I'll be introducing the Going Green section of the conference. So keep an eye out for that, and come along and have a chat if you wish. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. If we missed any questions, we will forward them onto Chris. If you have any questions that you want to send in, please do send them in, and we're happy to forward them on and get Chris to respond to them. So enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of January.